Hi, my name is Elena. The mare on the video, her name is Malorie. I bought her about 2 years ago and she was going fine, but we recently had to have her in a paddock for about 6 months because she had thrush and we had to wait for the hoof to grow. And we started working in February and she's sort of come back to her old misbehaviors. One of them is spooking and then rearing pretty badly. Well, if I can get any help about that, that would be awesome.
So, Elena, looks like you had some interesting, exciting experiences in the ring. It looks obviously like this is not the first time. So your horse has, of course, natural defense to a sensation in the body, not being able to manage it, and this is the escape from that. So, of course, it's not my job here to say to you, in that moment, you need to tickle the right ear and slap her on the butt, and that will solve your problem, and she'll know not to do that again. Because it's, of course, not trying to cure the rearing. It's finding out why the horse is in a state where she feels she has to rear, why she's giving this defensive reaction in that moment. And of course, this is just a sort of overflow of lack of being able to manage the situation and manage herself. And you see to what length she continues to try to escape the situation. And that just becomes a build-up of things that have happened in her life, things that happened on that day, things that are happening in that moment. And so it just becomes a full-fledged flight reaction of defense, survival mode. So what's important is, of course, to go back into the diagnosis process. So groundwork from the beginning, when a horse that's rearing will show that the hind legs are very much stuck in the ground, and there's not a lot of conversation, communication between the forelegs, between the diagonal pairs, from the beginning, from the ground up. And then, of course, that creates some reflex reaction, some tension movement patterns. So the body is, every time it moves, going into a contraction and then moving. And then if there's pressure from the outside, from the environment, from the expectation of the job we have to do, any kind of sort of demand on the physiology, then the physiology will sometimes go into a contraction, will actually physically put the handbrake on, and then the tension and the fear from that creates a circulation of energy that can't go forward anymore, so of course it starts to go up. In a general sense, we're talking, this is generally what happens, and when I see the reaction of your horse, this is pretty much what's going on there. And so we have to, through the groundwork patterns, find a way to be able to create good diagonal pair connection. We call this the clock shape. So this is being able to have first some tension release exercises that your horse learns what it is to flex and extend the head and the neck, that this is possible in the body through releasing tension and extending the body. Because you have a horse that's going into a vertical stance, there's a lot of contraction this way in the body. And so we have to learn what it is to open the front end and open the front leg to be able to make the good connection from the hind leg. So that looks like a simple groundwork pattern where you're holding the neck. If you're standing on the left side with your left hand underneath the neck, right hand runs along the spine, feeling the skin and feeling if there's a reaction. If there's a reaction, you stay. When the horse starts to relax a little bit, or not looking for the relaxation, but looking to what has to happen in the body to get to the relaxation. So that might be going from external to one eye looks back, you give the release, or one ear, she starts to have her senses focus on herself, which enables her to feel herself, which enables her to feel that there's possibly a different state than tension. When she starts to relax, you reward to say, yeah, this is the direction we want to be going, until you can allow the neck to flex in that direction. Being able to then go into the tension release in the flank. So when you're having a horse that rears, there's a lot of contraction in the abdominal area, in the flank area. So you bring a focus to that. You let the horse feel where the contraction is and how they can release that contraction in the body, that they have the control, that the power is within them to change how they feel in that moment. Going through that process is helpful because the horse starts to realize when tension starts to build up. And sometimes there's a lot going on in the body that's building up tension that they're not aware of. And by the time it gets to the overflow point across the threshold, then the only option is to have the full-fledged flight reflex reaction of survival. And so letting go of that part, that tension in the abdominals, in the flank, gives more functionality for her to start when you start the clock shape, we call it, shape for the carrying posture. It's giving symmetry, connection in the body, diagonal pairs. Looking up those things in the online training will help you then to find more symmetry in the body, more connection in the body. Because in the moment where the horse is in flight, they've lost physical connection, especially between diagonal pairs. This will show up in the diagnosis where the body starts to get stuck. And then you can change your technique, the way of guiding her in the body to find diagonal pair connection through guiding more through the front, more through the shoulder, or more through the hip. So you're really finding that this horse finds balance, connection in the body, a sense of self-management, control, knowing what to do with the physiology in a certain situation. The rear is like throwing everything out of the boat, and we don't know what to do anymore, so we just try to jump out of this situation. So you're giving those skills and understandings. And then it's going through the elements of what could be the triggers. You know, it could be noise, it could be movement, it could be just the feeling of the body, and you don't need to do any of those things. But you want to make sure that there's nothing in the environment that you're going to present her with that's going to cause an adverse reaction, that's going to shift it into a tension movement pattern again, which will create a reaction which will bring upon the undesired behavior that you're having here. So going through those tests, really feeling, okay, does my horse know everything they need to know? And do they know what to do with themselves in the presence of the thing that they're going to experience when you go to the show, when you ride at home, when you decide to ride in the outdoor, you go for a hack out? Do they know what it is they need to do? And that you know that she knows what to do with herself. So you're not sitting up there in the survival position looking for the ejector button when there's a reaction. When you start these patterns and find connection on the groundwork, you see, because you're on the ground without saddle, bridle, rider, how the horse is making a connection, if they're making a connection. Where does the connection break? How do I get them to be in connection again, in a flow state where they get good symmetry in the body? What is the breaking point? How do you recognize it when you're seeing it? Then you start to be able to feel it. And then when you're sitting in the saddle, you also know how you can help your horse through a tension moment. At the moment when your horse goes into full flight rear, you're also in survival mode. So you're both sort of up shit creek without a paddle, and you need to be able to be in a good position of actionable things that are going to help your horse reconnect with the body, to be grounded again and be able to go on without this escalating to more and more of a dangerous state. So the important part, of course, of the process of diagnosis and the new skills and the new foundation you develop in your horse's body is not only for your horse, but also for you to recognize what's missing, and you can start to predict that in the future and be in a position to guide your horse into a more comfortable place and yourself in a more comfortable place before you get to these moments where you're having a real explosion again.